a land called Latia, a place shared by humans, monsters, and spirits. In this world, humans can borrow the power of spirits, which are manifestations of elements like fire or water, to produce magic. There are also powerful spirit kings who oversee these spirits and sometimes lend their great power to humans. This story is about one such girl who received a spirit king's blessing, a girl with long hair named Amelia Logan, who wishes everyone a good morning. The scene then shifts to a pair of hands opening a book titled, The Saint Beloved by the Prince. Inside the story, a girl with dark hair is shown crying as someone yells at her, calling Amelia a nuisance. This angry person scowls and questions why she acts so high and mighty just because she possesses the blessing of the Light Spirit King. The book's narrative explains that Amelia was just a commoner from a small town in Latia, but one day she discovered she was blessed by the Light Spirit King himself, and because of this, she was whisked away to an elite school for nobles. Back in the story, a group of girls gossip about someone, calling her disgusting and commenting on her awful hair and skin, while Amelia looks on in distress, thinking of Claudia. The person reading the novel continues, and the narration explains that this girl, Claudia, was born with the protection of the Dark Spirit King. Her dark hair, black eyes, and brown skin are hallmarks of this protection and are rarely seen in Latia. The reader learns that for some reason, Claudia considers the heroine Amelia to be her enemy. The novel's plot unfolds, revealing that Amelia was eventually chosen to be the kingdom's saint and a symbol of peace. Claudia, however, was set to be part of a peacemaking political marriage with the hostile kingdom of Guardia. The reader continues as the book explains that the ceasefire with Guardia was broken, and the war resumed. This forced Claudia to fight on the front lines for her new kingdom, which ultimately left the heroine Amelia with no choice but to defeat Claudia to restore peace to Latia. The scene then reveals the person reading the novel is a young girl named Sakura, who is listening to her parents fight again. Her mother complains that taking care of the kid is her job, while her father yells back that he doesn't like the brat either. Sakura knows her parents never planned to have her and always resented her. She sadly thinks that she never asked them to give birth to her and that she'll try to stop their fighting. Her mother looks on, saying it's pretty tragic, just before her father slams something and yells about the meal, while her mother yells back to shut up. Sakura reflects that even the novel's villainess, Claudia, was always hated by everyone around her. Sakura stands at the top of the stairs and calls down, asking her parents to keep it down. As she stands on the landing, she thinks that she can somehow empathize with the hated Villainess. She walks downstairs and is horrified to see her father holding a bloody knife, and she asks what's going on. On the floor, she sees her mother lying in a pool of blood and whispers, "Mom?" Sakura is frozen in terror as her father turns to her, blaming her and saying it's all her fault. The next moment, she is falling, having been stabbed, and thinks about how much it hurts as she realizes she is dying. As her life fades, she reaches out her hand, reflecting that this is all her life amounted to. In a dark, starry void, Sakura's hand reaches out toward a tall, robed figure who calls her, "My beloved child." The figure explains that they have no name and wishes for her to bestow one upon them. She mentally offers the name Gerald, and the being accepts it as an excellent name, confirming she means him. Sakura then awakens with a start, finding herself a baby and wondering what's happening. The last thing she remembers is her dad stabbing her, and she wonders why she can't move properly. Two maids are looking down at her in her crib. One says the baby was born with the Dark Spirit King's protection. The other agrees, pointing out her dark hair, eyes, and skin, saying it's all so dark. The first maid says she's never seen anyone like her in Latia and feels sorry for the madam, who became bedridden from the shock of her birth. The baby, Sakura, is confused, wondering what is going on as she recognizes the words Latia and Dark Spirit King from the novel. Suddenly, the robed figure from her dream, Gerald, appears beside her crib. She's shocked, realizing it's the same guy, and tries to speak, but only baby sounds come out. She mentally asks, "Gerald?" and his voice fills her mind, confirming she is finally awake. He explains that she only needs to think of what she wants to say, as spirits can comprehend their master's thoughts. He praises her as a quick learner, calling this their telepathic bond that allows them to always talk. The baby's eye is shown in close-up as she mentally asks what he is. Gerald introduces himself as the Dark Spirit King. He explains that he found her beautiful soul in the abyss and decided to bestow his protection upon her. She asks what protection means, and he replies that he has granted his powers to her, calling her Claudia. He reminds her that she gave him his name, after all. Sakura, now Claudia, is confused, wondering who Claudia is and if that dream was real. She is shocked, thinking that her name is Sakura, while a maid peeks in the room, confused. Gerald's voice insists that Claudia is her name now, and as his master, he will lend her his protective power. Utterly lost, she begs Gerald to explain what's going on, and he agrees. He explains that she has been reborn as Claudia, a daughter of the Duke Litzia family, in the land of Latiia, a country where spirits, monsters, and humans coexist. All spirits in this country are ruled by spirit kings, and he is the king of the dark. He notes that while most humans in Latiia can call upon spirits, only a few can call a spirit king. He warns her that because she has his protection, she won't be able to learn normal magic, but his power is far greater and will be a great help to her in the future. Baby Claudia stares with a blank expression, suddenly realizing that this is the exact setting of the novel she was just reading. The horrifying truth dawns on her: she really did die back in her old world, and of all the people in the novel she could have become, she has been reincarnated as the villainess, Claudia. She remembers the plot. Claudia is the girl who gets shipped off for marriage, sent to a battlefield, and is ultimately killed by the heroine Amelia. She was killed after being hated by her parents in her first life, only to be reincarnated in a place where she'll be hated by everyone and killed again. She bleakly concludes that she is doomed. As Gerald looks on, she thinks this has to be a joke and wonders if she'll always be a nuisance no matter where she goes. But then she sits up in her crib. She thinks, no, wait. She has read this story and she knows Claudia's fate. If she does things right, she wonders if she can avoid that horrible ending. She recalls that the Claudia in the novel had a terrible attitude. She immediately asks Gerald how old she is, and he replies that it has been about 1 year since she was born. Filled with new resolve, she thinks, I can do it. Claudia decides that if she can change her attitude, maybe people will treat her differently. She resolves to do her best to get along with everyone as she grows up, believing that if people like her, she can escape her horrible fate. The story jumps forward 5 years, showing Claudia at age 6. She politely asks a startled maid for a cup of tea. The maid nervously agrees and hurries away, slamming the door. Later, a maid rushes down the hall, apologizing for the wait, but she trips and spills the hot tea all over Claudia. The maid panics and apologizes profusely, but Claudia, though drenched, stays calm. She simply says she's fine and asks for a cloth to wipe up the mess. Internally, she reflects that she has been trying to change her accursed fate, but so far, not a single thing has changed for the better. Gerald's voice appears, asking if she is all right and calling the maid boorish, but Claudia just replies that she's fine. Later in her room, Claudia thinks about her situation. She has all the hallmarks of the Dark Spirit King's protection: black eyes, dark hair, and brown skin. She knows that just seeing her is enough to put people on edge and that they fear her, wondering what sin she committed, all while Gerald remains invisible to everyone but her. Her mother enters the room, having knocked, and says she saw a maid running away, asking if something happened. Claudia looks down sadly and asks her mother if she thinks she did something to the maid, before saying it was nothing. Claudia looks away, saying she's fine, and her mother's expression softens, insisting she was just worried. Claudia then asks her brother, Liam, to check on the maid for her, explaining that she would only frighten the maid if she went herself. Liam agrees and leaves the room. As Claudia closes her book, Gerald appears, commenting that this new maid will likely be the 10th one to quit. Claudia sadly reflects on how hard it is to be likable. She knows she can't change her appearance or the spirit that protects her. Even when she tries to smile, she just scares people more because she never smiled in her previous life and doesn't know how, which Gerald notes by mentioning her awkward face. She wonders what else she can do, noting that only her big brother and the butler don't seem terrified of her. However, she clenches her fist with determination, telling herself it's still too early to give up. She reminds herself that she still has 8 years before Claudia and Amelia are supposed to meet in the novel. A powerful image of her older self with a sword appears as she resolves that she can definitely change something before then. She does not want a repeat of the depressing death from her last life. She just wants to live a peaceful life this time. With renewed hope, she vows that she will definitely escape her fate from the novel. Claudia discusses the maid problem with her father, Duke Alauti Letzia, explaining that she wants to prevent her reputation from getting worse as all the maids he hires just get scared and quit. She states that a new maid won't be a problem, just as the Dark Spirit King, Gerald, suddenly manifests in a burst of dark energy, startling her father. Gerald declares that he will be the one to protect her. Claudia mentally tells Gerald to restrain himself as a new, elegant spirit with pointed ears appears in a flutter of petals. telling Gerald not to be so boorish. The Duke recognizes this new figure as Romario. Claudia explains that this is the Wind Spirit King, Romario, who protects the head of the Letsia family and has blessed them for generations. Gerald smiles, telling the Duke there's no need to be wary, but Romario looks on, clearly unconvinced. Romario complains that all the humans sent to Claudia just end up fleeing in fear. Gerald announces that from now on, he will personally watch over and take care of Claudia. The Duke, looking nervous, reflects that a spirit wouldn't harm its master and they will be safe as long as they don't anger Gerald further. He agrees and entrusts Claudia to Gerald's care. With that settled, Claudia makes another request. She would like a tutor to help her study. Her father is surprised by the request. Claudia thinks to herself that in the novel, she was never educated and was isolated from high society. She believes that becoming more cultured might help her change her fate, as she has reached the limit of what she can teach herself. The head butler, Jordan, steps forward and offers to take on her tutelage. The Duke is surprised, and Claudia accepts, thinking that Jordan is one of the few people who isn't afraid of her, unlike a new tutor who would likely quit. Her father agrees but then raises the issue of etiquette, which is typically taught by the mother. Claudia recalls that, just as in the novel, she has never really interacted with her mother. When her mother first saw her after her birth and learned of the Dark Spirit King's blessing, she was so horrified that she fainted and became despondent. She has been in poor health ever since. Her father says he will speak to his wife, Isana, noting it would be good for her to see Claudia at least once. Claudia agrees, though she worries if it's right to meet her mother, who is so afraid, and if the manners she's taught herself are wrong. After Claudia leaves, Jordan asks the Duke why he never smiles when speaking to his daughter. The Duke sighs and admits that he can't help but be nervous in front of her. He confesses he is worried because if she ever felt the inclination, she is potentially capable of destroying the world. Jordan then mentions the emergence myth, and the Duke confirms this is what he's referring to. Jordan explains that this myth is why the fear of the Dark Spirit King is so deeply ingrained in Latia's people. The myth tells of a time long ago when a tyrant ruled the land. A hero blessed by the Dark Spirit King slew the tyrant and with his best friend, rebuilt the country. However, the people, and eventually even his best friend who became king, grew to fear the man's dark power. In his despair, the man sacrificed himself to curse the kingdom. The curse was broken by a woman blessed by the Light Spirit King, who became the country's savior, and the nation was renamed Latia in her honor. Jordan insists that despite this history, the young miss is a good person. The Duke sadly agrees, saying he knows that, but as her father, he struggles with how to face her. A few days later, Claudia has her etiquette lesson with her mother, Isana Letsia. She politely demonstrates her table manners, and her mother watches with a stunned expression. Claudia thinks that her mother is still afraid of her, which can't be helped given the shock of her birth. She finishes and asks how she did. Her nervous mother replies that it was quite amazing, and that she has nothing left to teach her. Claudia is moved, her mother looked her way and even complimented her, something she's sure never happened in the novel. She thanks her mother, feeling a small victory. Afterwards, she continues her studies with Jordan, determined to keep doing what she can, little by little. 4 years pass, and Claudia is now 10 years old. Her father enters her room to inform her they have received an invitation to the Queen's royal tea party. Claudia's first instinct is to decline, fearing she will cause chaos. However, her father explains that she must make her social debut eventually. He explains that while only the royal family currently knows about her dark protection, it is better for the other nobles to find out now rather than later. He assures her that her brother, Liam, will be there to help and that the Queen has also taken precautions to ensure things go smoothly. Claudia considers this. She knows it's a chance to make friends with other children her age and avoid her bad ending, even if she is scared to go. Resolving to prepare for the worst, she tells her father that she will attend the party. On the day of the tea party, Claudia rides nervously in a carriage, thinking about how it's her first time not only attending a party but even leaving the house. Her brother, Liam, tells her she looks really pretty, a compliment she's never heard before that makes her genuinely happy. When they arrive, however, the other children immediately start whispering, pointing her out as Duke Letsia's daughter and calling her creepy. Claudia wonders if they think she's deaf, while her protective spirit, Gerald, angrily suggests they kill them all, forcing her to mentally tell him to stop. She feels nerve-wracked being stared at by so many children her age and assumes the Queen must have warned them about her Dark Spirit King protection in advance. She begins to regret coming at all. Just then, Liam asks if she is okay as a beautiful woman. Queen Agnes of Latia approaches them, The queen welcomes them warmly, saying she is glad they could make it. Liam and Claudia formally introduce themselves, and Claudia is impressed that the queen, befitting royalty, doesn't even blink at her appearance. The queen then introduces her own sons, the first prince, Levi, and Prince Edgar. She notes that Liam and Levi must know each other from school, which Liam confirms. However, when the queen tells Prince Edgar to greet them, he just stares at Claudia, taking in her dark hair, eyes, and skin. He then bluntly states that she is pretty creepy. The queen is mortified and yells at Edgar to apologize, but he just turns his head away with a thumph. Claudia is baffled, wondering who this rude, son kid is. She recalls from the novel she read in her past life that Prince Edgar is supposed to be the charming main hero who gets engaged to the heroine Amelia, and she wonders if his character was always like this. Prince Levi, however, steps forward and graciously apologizes to Lady Letsia for his brother's rudeness. Claudia is surprised, telling him not to worry, and notices that, like her brother and the butler, Prince Levi isn't afraid of her. He then smiles and invites her to talk with him somewhere else, as other girls in the background swoon over him. He gently takes her hand and leads her away, leaving Claudia completely bewildered and wondering what is happening. Prince Levi takes her to a separate table, but this only causes the other girls to stare and whisper about them, calling Claudia's appearance awfully dark, and trying to call the prince away from her. Claudia feels her plan to make friends is already failing. The girls giggling and comments about her awful black hair continue until Prince Levi turns to them. He politely excuses himself, and as they sweetly answer, he informs them that they have fallen greatly in his regard. The girls freeze in shock as Prince Levi smiles and declares that in his eyes, compared to them, Claudia is much more beautiful. The embarrassed girls quickly scurry away. As they sit, he complains about how rude the girls were, but Claudia, feeling suspicious, thanks him for standing up for her. She then asks him directly if he is just using her as a way to keep the other girls away. He laughs, admitting she caught him, but insists he also genuinely wanted to talk to her. He advises her to be bold and show her superiority to such people. Claudia reflects that while she wanted friends, he's right that she could never get along with girls like that. He continues to insist she is more beautiful, but she thanks him for this sympathy, saying the other girls are prettier. He just smiles and says she is truly interesting. Claudia then spots her brother, Liam, being uncomfortably swarmed by other girls, and Levi laughs, admitting that's the rough go he was running away from. The party ends with Claudia having only spoken to her brother and the enigmatic Prince Levi, leaving her to feel that her future will be full of difficulties. A few weeks later, Claudia, filled with curiosity about the outside world, uses Gerald's shadow step ability to sneak out into the city. Gerald nervously asks if this is wise, but Claudia is determined to explore freely without an escort. She dons a hood, thinking she'll go unnoticed, but is almost immediately found by Prince Edgar. She's shocked and stammers that she's just shopping, and he, just as son as ever, blushes and yells that he's just running errands and it's none of her business. Their argument is cut short by a girl's scream. They see a man grabbing a young noble, Lady Emily, who Claudia recognizes from the novel as the heroine's best friend and a future enemy. Deciding that doesn't matter now, Claudia orders Gerald to bind the man, which he does instantly with his shadow magic, slamming the man to the ground. Claudia rushes to check on Emily, but Prince Edgar grabs her shoulder. He angrily asks if the magic was her doing and scolds her for being so reckless, demanding to know what she would have done if she'd been hurt. Claudia is stunned, as no one has ever been angry for her sake before. She tells him she is going home via magic and vanishes as he calls for her to wait. A few days later, Jordan the butler brings Claudia 2 letters. She is shocked to see they are from Prince Edgar and Lady Emily. Emily's letter thanks her for the rescue and asks to visit, while Edgar's letter states that he and his brother will be visiting to talk to her. Claudia is floored, wondering how Emily knew it was her and what the princes could possibly want. As she's processing this, Jordan corners her, and she starts to apologize for sneaking out. She worries the storyline is changing, but knows she can't let her guard down. To her surprise, Jordan smiles and says this is a good opportunity to build connections, suggesting she host a tea party for all of them. Claudia is horrified, thinking she's a terrible conversationalist, but just then, her brother Liam appears, having been eavesdropping. He declares it's a great idea and offers to help. Encouraged by his support, Claudia agrees, resolving to write the invitations immediately and hoping, despite her nerves, that everyone will have a good time. The day of the tea party arrives, and Claudia is shown looking extremely nervous. Her brother, Liam, sits with her, smiling and reassuringly complimenting her dress. Just then, the butler, Jordan, knocks and opens the door to announce that her guests have arrived. Claudia tenses up, mentally preparing for the enemy. She thinks about her plan. The homemade cookies should subdue them, but she has an escape route prepared just in case. Her spirit, Gerald, wonders why she is talking like she's heading into battle. Her guests, Prince Levi, Prince Edgar, and Lady Emily, are shown in the room. Prince Levi wishes her a good day while Lady Emily thanks her for the invitation. Claudia warmly welcomes them all, but Prince Edgar looks awkward. He approaches Claudia, wanting to discuss his rude behavior at the previous tea party. As he speaks, he internally recalls her features that he'd found creepy before, her dark hair, dark eyes, and dark skin. He then gives her his apologies, explaining that no matter how frustrated he felt, it was wrong to take it out on her, and he is truly sorry. He then pulls out a small box, offering her a gift as a token of his apology. Claudia opens it and is stunned to find a beautiful pendant with a large, expensive-looking gem. She insists she couldn't accept something so valuable, even as she admires how pretty it is. Prince Levi suddenly appears, teasing his brother, while a blushing Prince Edgar insists she must take it, as he picked it out specifically for her. Edgar quietly admits that he doesn't really know what girls like, so he had to ask his older brother, Levi, for help with the shopping. Claudia is astonished, realizing this means that when she ran into him in town he was buying this gift. She is moved that 2 members of the royal family went to such trouble for her. Levi overhears and cheerfully adds that he's sure Claudia and Edgar will get along well. Claudia, holding her teacup, smiles and graciously accepts the lovely gift, telling Prince Edgar not to worry about the past incident anymore. He shyly thanks her, and she reflects that he's not like his novel character, but rather a boy who just wears his heart on his sleeve. Next, Lady Emily steps forward, also wanting to thank Claudia for rescuing her in the city. She insists that Claudia truly saved her and presents her with an embroidered scarlet handkerchief as a token of her gratitude. Claudia panics a little, saying she just did what any normal person would do. Holding the handkerchief, Claudia is deeply moved. After being alone in her previous life and avoided in this one, she never knew how good it felt to be around such kind people. She then asks Emily how she knew who had saved her. Prince Levi speaks up, explaining that he had been nearby helping Edgar choose her gift at the time. After Claudia vanished, he escorted Lady Emily to the guard station. Since Emily wanted to know her savior's identity, he told her it was Claudia. Claudia understands, realizing that's how the mystery was solved. Levi also assures her that he kept her use of the Dark Spirit King's magic a secret from the knights. He smiles, impressed that she isn't even a little flustered. As he speaks, Emily shyly approaches Claudia with a question. Emily asks Claudia if she will be her friend. Claudia is visibly stunned. She immediately warns Emily that she has the Dark Spirit King's blessing, a power so feared that her own parents avoid her. She cautions that associating with her could cause Emily to be ostracized too. Emily boldly declares that it doesn't matter at all and that she wouldn't want anyone who would discriminate against Claudia in her life anyway. She asks Claudia if she has ever hurt anyone or plotted to destroy the world. Emily explains that in the myth, the power wasn't evil, but the man who used it to hurt people was. Claudia, she says, did the opposite and used her power to save her, which is precisely why she wants to be friends. Claudia is touched, realizing Emily saw her true self. She happily accepts if Emily will have her. They are both delighted, and Emily asks to be called by her first name, with Claudia asking for the same. Prince Levi then chimes in, asking Claudia to call him by his first name as well. Claudia immediately refuses because he is a prince, and her brother, Liam, steps in, protectively telling Levi to stop messing with his sister. Claudia reflects on this new group of friends, the eldest prince, the heroine's future fiancé, the heroine's best friend, and herself, the Villainess. She knows that in the original novel, these people would never have gathered like this. While she's unsure what will happen when the heroine appears, she feels that for now, things are moving in the right direction. The party is a great success, and Claudia thanks Liam for his help. Half a year later, Jordan brings them big news. Claudia has a new baby brother. Gerald notes the birth seems to have been without complications. Jordan announces the baby's name is Sylphonse and asks Claudia if she would like to go see him. Claudia thinks Syl is a nice nickname. Although Claudia had been excited about a new sibling, having been told after her tea party, she declines to visit him. She sadly explains that babies are sensitive and fears that her presence, with the Dark Spirit King's power, would scare him. Jordan quietly understands. As she walks away, her father, Duke Alauti, watches her. He thinks that it's fine, as all members of the Letsia family are loved by the Wind Spirits, thanks to his blessing from the Wind Spirit King, and they will watch over Sil. Another year passes. Claudia is much happier, having kept up with her friends, especially Emily. She's grateful to have made her first ever friends. She is shown reading a book she found while on a fun trip downtown, thinking Emily might like to read it next. While at home, she sighs, wondering if anything can be done about Prince Edgar's bluntness. She then hears her baby brother, Sil, cooing nearby. She looks up and is horrified to see him toddling near the edge of a high, open staircase. As an adult yells for him to stop, Sil falls over the edge. Claudia knows she's too far to catch him and screams for Gerald. Instantly, Gerald's shadow magic envelopes the falling baby. The magic safely catches Sil and brings him directly into Claudia's arms. She cuddles him, immensely relieved. Just then, a maid runs in, sees the baby crying in Claudia's arms, and immediately accuses her, asking what she thinks she's doing. Claudia, shocked, insists she didn't do anything, but her mother, Lady Isana, and others arrive. The maid points and claims that the young miss was about to hurt Master Sylphonse. Isana snatches the baby away, begging Claudia to stay away from Sil. Claudia is heartbroken, asking her mother if she really believes she would hurt her own brother. To her horror, Isana says, yes, that's right. She accuses Claudia of hating her and trying to take Sil as revenge. As Jordan and the Duke rush in, Jordan immediately defends Claudia, insisting she would never do such a thing. Claudia can only think how ridiculous the accusation is. At that moment, Gerald appears, furious. He reveals himself and scolds Isana, stating that Claudia had actually rescued Sil after he fell from the second floor. He roars at her to stop denigrating Claudia with her ridiculous nonsense, terrifying the maid. Later, the Duke approaches Claudia. He apologizes for what happened and thanks her for saving Sil. Claudia, looking empty, replies that she just did what anyone would do. She says if that's all, she'll be going. As she walks away, she thinks to herself that she is used to being ostracized and that incidents like this don't hurt her at all. Claudia, now 12 years old, is dressed in a new school uniform and holding a briefcase as she prepares to leave her home. Her father, Duke Alauti, sees her off and asks if she is truly fine, to which she confirms she is. He closes the door, adding that he is sure her mother, Isana, also sends her best wishes. While riding in a rattling carriage toward the large school, Claudia thinks about her first day. She is nervous about navigating life among other people, but she comforts herself with the knowledge that her friends Emily and Prince Edgar are in her year, and her brother Liam and Prince Levi are seniors at the same school. She knows she cannot stand still and is grateful that, unlike the Villainess in the novel, she is not alone. As soon as Claudia enters the classroom, the other students begin to whisper, pointing her out as the girl who received the Dark Spirit King's blessing. She nervously tries to reassure herself, and at that moment, her friend Emily cheerfully waves and calls her over. Claudia is relieved to find that her seat is right next to Emily and Prince Edgar. Prince Edgar smiles and greets her, and as the other students whisper about why she is so friendly with the prince, he notices her discomfort and taps her shoulder, telling her to ignore them. Another boy named Grayson then greets Prince Edgar before turning to point at Claudia, identifying her as the one blessed by the Dark Spirit King. Claudia recognizes him as the Prime Minister's son from the novel, a character who was originally hostile to her. The awkward silence is broken by a charming new boy who introduces himself as Ronald Winder, delighting the other girls. Claudia is confused as she doesn't remember a character named Ronald from the novel and wonders if her actions have already changed the story. The teacher arrives and instructs the class to take their seats before announcing their first activity, examining everyone's magical element. The teacher explains that in Latiia, people can use magic by borrowing power from the spirits, and each student will place their hand on a crystal ball to find their affinity. Claudia watches as her classmates go one by one, noting that Emily has water magic and Prince Edgar has fire. When the teacher calls Miss Letsia, Claudia steps forward. The moment her hand approaches the crystal, it erupts with a massive, dark power, shattering the ball and causing the other students to scream in terror. The teacher quickly claps to regain order and moves to the next student. Claudia, though saddened by their fear, resolves to do her best to get on good terms with her classmates to change her future. 1 week later, the class is in the forest for an orienteering exercise. The teacher explains that spirits are abundant in nature, and this activity will help the students develop their magical powers while also deepening their bonds. As they walk, a girl named Lily slips on the uneven path. Grayson rushes to her side, and it's revealed that she is his fiancée. The students are divided into teams, and Emily is excited to be grouped with Claudia. Grayson, however, loudly complains that being on a team with the girl blessed by the Dark Spirit King is the worst. Lily warns him that Claudia can hear, and Emily laughingly tells him he can go home if he's so offended. This creates a very awkward atmosphere. Ronald, who is also on their team, tries to change the subject by cheerfully commenting on the great weather. Grayson glares and mutters that it's overcast, making the mood even worse. The group's task is to collect various herbs and reach the goal by nightfall, which is difficult as the herbs are hard to find. As they walk, Lily stumbles and falls again. Emily, holding the map, impatiently tells her to get up, but Claudia calmly intervenes, telling Emily not to rush her. Just as Lily thanks Claudia, a loud roar echoes through the forest. The group is terrified, and Grayson panics, insisting the teacher said there were no monsters in the forest. Ronald gravely says the sound was from something much bigger. Terrified, Lily announces she's going back and runs off. Grayson immediately chases after her. Emily starts to follow them, but Ronald grabs her arm, telling her to calm down and that panicking is the most dangerous thing they can do. Emily looks at her map and realizes the goal is close. She suggests she and Claudia should go report to the teacher. Claudia agrees, and Ronald volunteers to go find Grayson and Lily. Emily asks Claudia if she will be safe, and Claudia reassures her, saying she has Gerald with her. Ronald, however, corrects the plan, stating he will accompany Claudia, boasting that he can hold his own. Emily agrees, says she's counting on them, and runs off toward the goal. As Claudia and Ronald run, he comments that she is too soft for wanting to save a selfish girl like Lily. Claudia replies that she could never abandon her. They suddenly hear another scream and run toward the sound, praying their classmates are safe. They burst into a clearing to find Grayson and Lily cowering in terror before a massive, roaring monster. Claudia, Ronald, Grayson, and Lily are frozen in shock as they face a menacing monster in the forest. Claudia quickly tells Grayson to take Lily and hide, as she doesn't want them to get in the way. Lily worriedly asks what Claudia will do, but Claudia reassures her that with Gerald's help, she will be fine, and urges them to hurry. As she prepares for battle, she tells Ronald to escape as well. To her surprise, Ronald states that he will stay and lend her a hand. He reasons that he cannot leave a lady to fight alone. He also points out that while the Dark Spirit King is powerful, Claudia herself cannot use magic, a fact she knows is the disadvantage of her protection. As the monster charges at them, Claudia calls out to Gerald. Her spirit protector immediately appears, promising to protect her without fail. The beast growls and lunges, and Claudia commands Gerald to ensnare it. Dark shadows erupt from the ground, surrounding the monster and tightening to bind it, causing the creature to creak and struggle. As the bound monster glares, Gerald suggests skewering it, and Claudia gives the order to cut it to pieces. Just as Ronald yells that they've won, the creature's body twitches. A massive burst of flames suddenly erupts from it, and Ronald quickly pulls Claudia back. The flames burn the monster to ashes, leaving Claudia stunned and wondering how Ronald is able to use such powerful magic. As Ronald checks if she is okay, a second, even larger monster roars and charges them. It moves too fast for them to react, but Ronald extends his arm and throws himself in front of Claudia, creating a dark shield that smashes the monster's attack. Claudia screams for Gerald. Before the monster can strike again, it collapses. Gerald appears, announcing that it is all over. He looks at Ronald and praises the boy for defending Claudia well. Claudia, filled with relief, smiles and thanks both Gerald and Ronald for saving her. Soon after, Emily arrives with the teacher and other students, calling Claudia's name. She rushes forward, crying and hugging Claudia, asking if she is hurt. Claudia reassures her friend that she is fine and apologizes for making her worry. Lily and Grayson, now safe, also approach. Lily thanks Claudia for saving them and apologizes for causing so much trouble, and Grayson apologizes for his harsh words earlier. Claudia is just happy that everyone is safe, reflecting on how they were all able to come to an understanding. She thinks that in one of the teen novels from her past life, this would be the point where everything wraps up nicely. However, the other students just stare at her in silence. The teacher claps her hands, announcing that the area is dangerous and they will all return to school. Claudia sighs, realizing that she is still hated by most. 2 years later, Claudia is 14 years old. She greets her classmates cheerfully. She reflects that after the orienteering incident, she became good friends with Lily, Grayson, and Ronald. These friendships never happened in the original novel, so she feels her efforts to avoid her bad end are progressing well. One day, Emily rushes up to her, incredibly excited. She asks if Claudia has heard the news that someone with the Light Spirit King's protection has been found. Emily is thrilled, noting that having both a dark and light-blessed person in the same generation is a historic event. Claudia, however, stiffens, knowing that the time has come for the novel's heroine to appear. Just then, the teacher announces a new transfer student will be joining their class. The teacher welcomes Miss Logan. A blonde girl, Amelia Logan, steps into the room and introduces herself. Claudia is horrified, recognizing her as the heroine who is fated to kill her. The teacher informs the class that Amelia is under the protection of the Light Spirit King. The other students whisper, gossiping that she is Baron Logan's illegitimate daughter who used to live in the poorer part of the capital. Amelia walks through the classroom and stops directly in front of Claudia, a timing that Claudia recognizes from the novel. Amelia asks, "Are you Claudia Lezia?" The other students are confused by her bluntness. Claudia is also confused as she remembers the novel's heroine having a much calmer and more relaxed personality. She awkwardly confirms that this is their first time meeting. Amelia then stares at Claudia and murmurs that her skin and eyes are dark, just like in the novel From My Past Life. Claudia's heart thumps as she processes those last words, past life. Before she can respond, Emily stands up and angrily asks Amelia if she doesn't think she's being incredibly rude. Lily agrees. Amelia looks at Emily, annoyed, and asks why she is taking Claudia's side, calling Lily a mob character. She then demands, "You're meant to be my best friend, aren't you?" Emily is confused, but Claudia understands everything. She realizes that this Amelia is also someone who has been reincarnated from a past life. Emily, still confused, asks what she means, stating that this is the first time they have ever met. As Amelia laughs it off, Prince Edgar tells her she is too noisy and to shut up. Instead of getting upset, Amelia is overjoyed, sighing with delight. Claudia, Emily, and Lily are all stunned by her reaction. Claudia recognizes that these were the exact lines that started Amelia and Edgar's relationship in the novel, though the atmosphere is completely different this time. She knows that if Amelia also remembers the novel and is actively trying to follow its plot, her fight to change her fate has just become much more difficult, but she resolves not to give up. Prince Levi approaches and greets Claudia, asking if he can join her and her friends for tea. He then asks Prince Edgar what he thinks of the new transfer student, Amelia, who is blessed by the Light Spirit King. Edgar flinches, and Emily comments that Amelia is a very unique student. Claudia explains to Levi that a month has passed since Amelia joined their class, and during that time, Amelia has made no effort to befriend any of the girls. Instead, she has focused all her charm on the boys from high-ranking noble families and has recently been approaching Grayson, which is making his fiancée, Lily, very uncomfortable. Prince Levi expresses his disappointment, as he had hoped Claudia and Amelia, the two students with powerful Spirit King blessings, might become friends, which could help people see Claudia as more approachable. He asks if becoming her friend would be too difficult, and Claudia shyly admits it would be toughish. Levi, amused by her response, kindly tells her that she only needs to ask if she ever needs his help. He then observes that Claudia seems different than she was before, but he dismisses it as nothing when she asks. Claudia privately considers how she could befriend Amelia, but she finds the new girl's personality so jarringly different from the character in the novel that she doesn't know how to act. Her thoughts are interrupted as she peeks from behind a library bookshelf, where she sees Lily and another girl confronting Amelia. They angrily accuse Amelia of inappropriately reeling in boys and getting far too cozy with other people's fiancés. Amelia feigns innocence and cries that she just wants to be friends with everyone. Sensing the confrontation is about to escalate, Claudia steps out and shouts for them to stop. Her sudden appearance startles all the girls, and Amelia seems shocked to see the Dark Spirit King's girl. Claudia knows that this group confrontation looks like bullying, which in the original novel led to the bullies being exiled. Though she knows she is interfering with the reincarnated Amelia's plans, Claudia is not willing to sacrifice her own friends to avoid her bad end. She calmly tells her friends to stop but then turns to Amelia, stating that the other girls do have a point. Emily steps up to support this, confirming that rumors about Amelia's behavior are circulating and that it appears she is trying to steal their fiancés. Amelia simply scoffs before bursting into a performance of comically bad, over-the-top fake tears, wailing about how cruel they are. She then runs out of the library, shouting that she just wanted to get along with everyone, leaving Claudia, Emily, and Lily dumbfounded. Lily advises Claudia that it is probably best to just avoid Amelia altogether. The very next day, Claudia sighs as she hears whispers spreading through the school, and she realizes rumors are going around that she was the one who bullied Amelia. She wonders if this is how the original Claudia was framed and exiled in the novel. Her friends, Emily and Lily, find her on the stairs and reassure her, telling her not to let the rumors bother her. Claudia thanks them, but Lily insists that they should be thanking her for stepping in. As they speak, Amelia makes a grand, loud entrance, slamming the classroom door open and cheerfully greeting everyone. She walks toward the group, and as she passes Claudia's desk, she grins and deliberately sticks her foot out, tripping herself. She falls dramatically to the floor and immediately points at Claudia, who is still seated, accusing her of purposely tripping her. The other boys in the class instantly jump to Amelia's defense, though Lily shouts that Claudia did nothing. Amelia puts on a tearful show, asking Claudia if she really hates her that much. Claudia, completely unfazed by the act, just looks at her and flatly replies, "Sure do." This response makes her spirit protector, Gerald, rumble with anger, asking Claudia if he can kill her now, but Claudia mentally tells him to stop, as it would only worsen the situation. Grayson and another boy help Amelia up to go to the infirmary, and she leans on Grayson's shoulder as they leave. After this, Claudia notices Amelia watching her constantly. The rumors eventually reach the upperclassmen, and Claudia's brother, Liam, approaches her. He says he's heard disturbing things about Baron Logan's daughter and that Prince Levi is also worried, offering his help if she needs it. It seems Amelia's reputation is even worse than it was in the novel. Later, Liam confronts Amelia, having asked her to meet him. Amelia immediately launches into her victim act, asking Liam if it isn't difficult having Claudia for a sister. She claims that Claudia is jealous of her popularity and has declared her an enemy. She continues, saying she's heard Claudia is tearing the family apart and that their mother is bedridden from the stress, offering to listen to all his troubles. Claudia, who was watching with Lily, steps out and interrupts, saying that there are far more bad rumors about Amelia than about her. Liam, his face cold, turns to a shocked Amelia and tells her to be gone. He orders her to never show her disgusting face to him or Claudia ever again. He then puts a hand on a stunned Claudia's shoulder, telling her that he loves her and couldn't be more proud to be her brother. Amelia is horrified, shouting that this is weird and shouldn't be happening. She insists that Liam is supposed to be ashamed of his awful, arrogant, heartless sister. Liam simply states he has no idea what she is talking about and leads Claudia away. As they leave, Claudia realizes that the reincarnated Amelia hasn't understood that her own actions have changed the plot of the novel. Left alone and furious, Amelia is approached by Ronald Winder, who asks if she's all right. He says he saw everything and agrees that Claudia is troublesome. Amelia immediately starts complaining, claiming Claudia must be manipulating Liam. Ronald pulls the poor thing into an embrace to comfort her, all while thinking to himself, "You stupid woman." A quiet, illustrative page of Claudia looking off to the side as petals drift through the air. This is followed by a charming, chibi-style image of a smiling Liam holding hands with a book carrying Claudia as they walk together. A small Claudia reading a book. Her spirit, Gerald, floats beside her, thinking to himself that she is such a good lass. When Claudia gets up and says she is just going to the toilet, Gerald's shadowy form is seen closely following her as she walks away. Liam's thoughts. He observes that since Claudia started making new friends, she has become much livelier and smiles more frequently. A small panel shows her and Emily happily becoming friends. Liam fondly recalls that in the past, she often had a completely deadpan expression, which he thought was also cute. A following scene shows Claudia happily telling Gerald that she is not a loner anymore. Gerald congratulates her but then cluelessly asks what a loner is. Liam thinks about how absurdly adorable Claudia's smile is and decides it is his brotherly duty to ward off any perverse insects that might buzz around her. The scene then shows him confronting a smiling Prince Levi, asking him who exactly gave him permission to visit Claudia. The short ends with Gerald still pestering Claudia to tell him what a loner means, and she finally tells him to leave me be. That a beautiful day as Claudia, a smiling girl with dark hair and a rose accessory, wishes her friend Emily a good morning. Claudia watches Emily walk towards the large school building where other students are chatting, but her pleasant morning is interrupted. Someone creeps up behind her, and another girl murmurs in surprise just before Claudia is knocked to the ground with a loud crash. Looking up, Claudia sees a blonde girl, Amelia, laughing loudly and obnoxiously. Claudia is stunned, thinking to herself that in the novel, the heroine Amelia was supposed to be graceful and kind. Amelia offers an insincere apology, saying she's sorry but she didn't see Claudia because she looked so plain, confirming Claudia's new realization that this heroine is actually a mean person. Claudia's friend Emily rushes over, furious, and tells Amelia that her actions were very mean. Amelia just stares back at her before Emily turns to help Claudia. Emily offers her hand, and Claudia, looking surprised by the kindness, accepts the help and thanks her. Emily then checks on Claudia, asking with concern if she is all right or hurt anywhere. Claudia, still sitting on the ground but looking up at her friend, reassures Emily that she is fine. Amelia, however, just brushes off the incident, saying she's in a good mood so she'll let it slide, and then quickly runs away. As she watches Amelia leave, Claudia reflects on the strange situation. She notices that her peers are treating her with more sympathy than ever before, while Amelia, who was supposed to be popular according to the novel, is becoming an outcast. Claudia knows the plot is changing but feels she can't relax, as the part of the story where she meets her demise is approaching, and she must stay on guard. Later, while walking alone through a hallway, Claudia overhears a serious conversation from behind a nearby door. A voice asks urgently if someone is sure, and Claudia's curiosity is piqued. She stops, listens, and then sneaks a peek around the corner. She hears a man confirm that the Kingdom of Guardia is mobilizing its troops as they speak. Claudia is visibly shocked by this revelation. Inside the room, two men discuss the troubling news. One notes that it seems Prince Carlos himself intends to lead the army, and the other confirms their goal is undoubtedly to invade Latium. This second man, Duke Alfer, looks grim as he reflects on the situation. He laments that Guardia, which covets their land's connection to the spirits, continuously targets them. He hopes they can stop the invasion once again but sounds uncertain. This news triggers a flashback for Claudia, who recalls the original novel's plot, illustrated by a dark silhouette of her holding a sword. In that story, Claudia's hand in marriage was meant to be a bargaining chip to secure a peace treaty with Guardia. However, the two kingdoms eventually went to war anyway, and Claudia, forced to fight for the opposing side, was ultimately killed by the heroine Amelia. Shaken by this memory and the news of war, Claudia goes to see Gerald, a man with long dark hair and pointed ears. She looks worried and asks him if he would be able to gather intelligence on the Kingdom of Guardia. Gerald looks down at her with concern, asking if she is all right, as Claudia trembles, realizing that if this war happens, she might die anyway, regardless of the plot changes. Gerald tells her that gathering information is within his power, but it would require him to leave her side for a while, and for that reason he refuses. Instead, Gerald suggests she rely on his kin, and when Claudia asks what he means, he clarifies: the spirits of darkness. Gerald tells her to watch and begins to summon them. Dark, swirling energy erupts around him with a roar, and Claudia gulps, stunned by the sight of the spirits. Two small, adorable shadow creatures appear with a poof, and fly excitedly around Claudia, calling her princess. Claudia is instantly delighted, calling them cute. Gerald explains that these spirits can easily gather information by hiding in shadows. He warns her, however, that they cannot understand complex dialogues and may also have trouble entering the Kingdom of Guardia. Claudia immediately has an idea and says it's fine if they can't leave the country. She asks Gerald if it would be possible for the spirits to enter the Duke's shadow instead. She wants them to listen and relay anything the Duke says about the Kingdom of Guardia. Gerald turns to the spirits and asks if they heard her, and the little creatures float in the air, declaring they will grant the princess's wishes and hopes. Claudia thanks Gerald, who replies that such a task is a mere trifle. The spirits fly off, and Claudia watches from the window, feeling calmer now that she has a way to stay informed of the country's plans. The very next day, a commotion is heard as someone announces the Duke's arrival. Claudia is sitting comfortably on a sofa with Gerald, who is surrounded by his shadow kin. He informs her that the Duke is attending an emergency council meeting. Claudia, taking a sip of tea, asks if he can hear what is happening. Gerald confirms that it should be audible through the spirit kin he attached to the Duke. One of the spirits is shown flying near the council room, and through it, Claudia and Gerald hear the Duke's voice announcing the start of the session. The scene shows the full council, a group of officials seated at a long table with the king at its head. The king begins the meeting, stating it concerns the Kingdom of Guardia. The council members erupt in anger. One shouts that they just signed a peace treaty last year, while another complains that Guardia prides itself on breaking deals and that these bastards never change. The king continues, reminding them of Guardia's many past invasion attempts and revealing the new intelligence. Guardia is preparing for war again, this time led personally by Prince Carlos. At this, Prime Minister Duke Alpha addresses the king, stating grimly that no matter how many times they are driven back, Guardia will always keep crawling back. Duke Alpha, identified as Grayson's father, then offers a cold-hearted solution with a smirk. He declares they must ensure Guardia never considers war an option ever again by completely pulverizing them. The king acknowledges the Duke's view but sets a firm condition: the conflict must only be a clash between armies. He insists he has no intention of allowing any civilians, either their own or Guardia's, to be caught in the crossfire. A young blonde man, Liam, speaks up, agreeing completely with the king's desire to protect civilians. He then says he has a single suggestion to offer that end. The king looks skeptical, asking if it's truly possible to deal massive damage to the enemy's military without harming any innocents. Duke Alpha grins and confirms that it is, because their kingdom currently possesses two precious miracles. With a slam of his hand on the table, Duke Alpha names them: Lady Claudia Letzia and Lady Amelia Logan. The council members are excited by this excellent idea, recognizing that these are the two people protected by the spirit kings of darkness and light, respectively. Duke Alpha argues that by using them, the war can be settled with ease. Liam, however, is horrified. He jumps up, shouting and asking his father, the Duke, how he can just let this happen. Duke Alpha coldly orders his son to sit down. Liam obeys but continues to argue, stating he is against the plan. He insists that, regardless of their powers, the priority should be finding a way to avoid war in the first place. The king silences Liam, but then surprisingly agrees with his sentiment. He states that just because Claudia and Amelia have unique abilities does not mean he is willing to send children to war. However, another council member stands to object. He concurs with Duke Alpha, suggesting that while he understands the hesitation to send Amelia, who might one day become the kingdom's saint, they could instead send Claudia, the one protected by the Dark Spirit King. A woman on the council stands up, furious at the suggestion. She asks if he is saying it doesn't matter what happens to Claudia and demands to know what he plans to do about the Dark Spirit King's wrath if Claudia loses her life. The man with glasses dismisses her concern, saying they would just take precautions. Another member murmurs how dreadful that sounds, recalling that the Dark Spirit King and its bearer nearly destroyed the world in the past. Liam interrupts, telling them not to misunderstand. He clarifies that the past destruction only happened because the people betrayed their own hero, and it was their ancestors who sowed the seeds of their own fate. Looking up with determination, Liam declares that they have absolutely no reason to avoid or ostracize Claudia. As he says this, he thinks of Claudia's name. Back in her room, Claudia has heard everything through the spirits. She is in total shock, trying to process what this means. She realizes that if she is not going to be married off for peace, they are seriously considering sending her to war instead. This new, terrifying possibility dawns on her. Before Amelia ever has a chance to kill her as the novel predicted, she might just die on the battlefield. As Gerald looks on with concern, Claudia stands by the window, distressed, wondering what she should do now. At a close-up of Claudia's shocked expression, as she inwardly questions the Duke's actions and fully absorbs the horrifying realization that they are planning to send her to war. The scene returns to the council meeting where Lottie, a woman with blonde hair, shouts at her father in protest, while Liam, standing beside her, can only look on in stunned disbelief, wondering why this is happening. The Duke, however, sits calmly in his high-backed chair, stating that he will leave the final decision to his daughter. The king, with a grim expression, challenges the Duke, asking if he truly understands the ramifications of his words, as his daughter could very well end up fighting for her life on the battlefield. A split panel shows the Duke's stern profile as he affirms that he is, of course, well aware of the risks, set against the terrified profile of Claudia, who is listening in from far away. A separate panel emphasizes Claudia's fear, showing her legs shaking. Duke Alpha, however, is thrilled by the Duke's stance, pumping his fist and calling the development splendid, suggesting they immediately make a plan to send the girls away. This earns him a sharp, angry glare from Liam, who thinks that Alpha runs his mouth too much. The king, seated on his throne, calls for silence, declaring that they cannot decide on a course of action today. He explains that they must first ascertain the intentions of both Claudia and Amelia, a proposal he trusts they all agree on. With that, he concludes the meeting. As the council members begin to bustle and leave the room, the king calls for Elodie and Liam to stay behind. Liam, looking distressed, immediately tries to protest, calling out for the king to wait and rethink his decision. Aladi, however, sharply cuts him off, telling him to drop it, which leaves Liam looking shocked and hurt. Once they are alone, Aladi passionately defends Claudia, asking what Claudia or even Gerald have ever done to deserve this treatment. She insists that Claudia has never hurt anyone and has nothing to do with the ancient hero who nearly destroyed the country. As Liam listens with his head bowed, Aladi laments that everyone talks about Claudia as if she's committed some terrible crime. Aladi then confronts the Duke, accusingly stating that the ones who really hurt people are him and her mother. Later, in a different hallway, Aladi speaks with the Queen, who asks her what she meant by that. Aladi asks if it's true that the Duke, her father, is doing all of this for Claudia's sake. The Queen explains the Duke's reasoning, saying that at this point, war with Guardia is impossible to avoid, as their violation of the Armistice Treaty cannot be overlooked. However, the Duke believes that with Claudia's power, the war could be ended in an instant. If she succeeds in saving others from sacrificing their lives, she will be seen as a hero. The Queen concludes, against the backdrop of a smoking, war-torn building, that after such a victory, not many people would be foolish enough to continue scorning her. The Queen further explains that she assumes the Duke was also thinking that if he himself goes to the battlefield, he would be able to protect Claudia, even just a little bit. Aladi is furious at this, yelling about what a half-hearted and terrible approach that is. She declares that this is why Claudia has never once called the Duke father. Back in her room, Claudia, having overheard this, looks conflicted. She admits she understands the reasoning but is now so confused she no longer knows what she should do. Several days later, Claudia walks alone down a long, ornate hallway in the royal palace, flanked by armored guards. She notes that His Majesty has summoned her personally and correctly assumes it must be to ask her if she is willing to go to war, just as she overheard in the meeting. Despite the gravity of the situation, she looks around in awe, thinking the palace is so pretty it feels like a dream. Her walk is interrupted as she is told to stop, and she finds herself face to face with Amelia, who is also there with her parents and laughing obnoxiously. Claudia, accompanied by Gerald, watches as Amelia's jaw drops in shock, and Claudia herself is just as surprised to see her. Amelia recovers first and loudly shouts, demanding to know why Claudia is there. She then strikes a pose, smoothly guessing they were both summoned. Amelia smugly speculates that His Majesty must have sent for her to personally witness her immense power, and will surely shower her with praise. As Amelia gets lost in her fantasy, Claudia dryly thinks that she certainly runs her mouth a lot. Amelia, blushing with excitement, then wonders if the king perhaps wants to discuss her becoming Prince Levi's fiancée. This is too much for her mother, who stands behind her and snaps for Amelia to stop. The mother then turns and apologizes to Claudia for her daughter's behavior. Claudia, thinking that Amelia's mother seems like a good person, dismisses the apology and turns, stating that they should get going as it's not a good idea to keep His Majesty waiting. As they walk, Claudia leans in and whispers to Amelia, wickedly suggesting that with this timing, she must have been called because they plan to marry her off to the kingdom of Guardia. She mockingly tells Amelia to have fun with the time she has left. This stops a shocked Amelia in her tracks, her obnoxious laugh still echoing. Amelia's parents, walking behind them, are horrified by the implication. Her father stammers, and her mother cries out, questioning if they are sending her daughter to the battlefield and saying that it can't be true. Amelia, now genuinely worried, whispers to herself that this is weird. She thinks that she isn't supposed to go to battle until the end of the novel, and even then only to defeat Claudia. They arrive in the throne room, where the king is seated. He explains that he summoned them to ask if they will go to war of their own volition, making it clear that this is a request, not an order. While Amelia's mother starts to object, Amelia herself shouts that of course there is no way she will go. Her mother quickly supports her, adding that her daughter is only 14 years old. To Amelia's shock, her father suddenly slams his hands down and enthusiastically declares that this is actually perfect. He tells his stunned daughter that serving the country in its time of need is a noble's duty and a huge honor. He pats her shoulder, reassuring her that since she has the light spirit king, Lady Grace, at her side, she will have nothing to fear in battle. A confused Amelia can only mutter for him to wait. Claudia and her shadow spirits observe this exchange. One spirit wonders why Amelia's father would be so enthusiastic, and the other correctly deduces that he must see this as an opportunity to form a connection with the royal family. Claudia quietly acknowledges that she understands. Suddenly, a loud banging and shouting comes from the hallway. A guard is heard pleading for Your Highness to wait, while another voice shouts to be let go. The door bursts open, showing Amelia struggling with a guard. Prince Levi then storms into the room, looking angry. He declares that, just as he said before, he is strongly against all of this. He stands between the two girls, arguing that he cannot just sit by and let them take advantage of young girls and use them as tools of war, regardless of whether they have blessings or not. Claudia looks at him, recognizing him as Prince Levi. Amelia, however, completely misinterprets his grand entrance. She points at him, swooning over how great it is to be the heroine. She wonders if His Highness has already fallen for her so much that he came to stop this for her sake. Deciding this isn't how the story is supposed to go, she clenches her fist and declares she definitely will not go. Amelia's mother quickly joins the protest, saying she is also against it. She argues that no matter how much faith they place in Lady Grace, there's no way to assure her daughter's safety, and she doesn't know what she would do if she lost her life. Her husband just sighs, and she turns to him, asking if he doesn't feel the same way. Amelia interrupts them all, shouting that it's fine to just send Claudia, since, she claims, Claudia was supposed to be married off to Guardia to settle things anyway. This strange comment makes Elodie, who is standing nearby, wonder what story Amelia is talking about. The king, looking tired, sighs and asks for calm. He reiterates that the decision rests entirely with the girls. Since Amelia has made her intentions clear, that matter is settled. He then turns his full attention to Claudia, who stands before the throne, and asks what she thinks. Claudia is conflicted, thinking that while the number of people sympathetic to her has grown, she is still unsure what to do. She weighs her options, knowing she still carries the stigma of the Dark Spirit King. If she refuses, her critics might use it to tear her down, claiming she doesn't care about the country's safety. On the other hand, Alpha and the Duke might be right. If she uses Gerald's power, there is a chance she could heavily reduce casualties on both sides. As she struggles, Gerald quietly says her name. Prince Levi speaks to her directly, earnestly telling her that it is fine to refuse, and in fact, he wants her to refuse. He pleads with her, saying that even with Lord Gerald by her side, there is no telling what could happen on a battlefield. Claudia looks down, a tear in her eye, and whispers, "Even so." She admits to herself that she is scared, but she also feels that if she goes, she might be able to help. Levi continues gently, telling her she is not a tool, but just an ordinary girl, and that he is worried about her. Claudia looks up at him and performs a small curtsy, thanking him very much. Levi just says her name, as Claudia looks up with new, shining determination. She makes her decision, announcing, "I'll go," because this is something that only she can do. Claudia then turns to Gerald and calls his name. She declares that this is no longer about avoiding a bad end, she is doing this to protect all the people she holds dear. She vows that if it has come to war, she will end it in one fell swoop and will make sure that nobody on either side has to lose their life. Gerald floats before her with a smile, bowing as he says, "As you wish." He promises to lend her all of his strength, and Claudia thanks him. Duke Alpha, seeing this, is delighted and shouts for them to begin planning straight away. 1 month later, the day of the battle finally arrives. Claudia reflects on her situation, thinking that even though this specific battle didn't happen in the novel, it doesn't guarantee she won't meet her fated demise during the war. As she stands nervously, she tries to reassure herself that she can do this. Gerald appears by her side, telling her to be at ease because he will remain with her and that she is not fighting alone. Claudia looks at him and gratefully thanks him. The Duke, Claudia's father, stands beside her, noting that her hair is tied back for combat, and tells her that it is time. They look down from a ridge at the enemy soldiers marching below. Claudia reminds herself to focus on the plan, which is to halt the enemy's advance without causing any bloodshed. With a determined expression, Claudia tells Gerald that she is counting on him. Gerald, surrounded by his small shadow kin, accepts her wish and commands his spirits to go forth and seal the movement of everyone who dares to stand before Claudia. Dark, shadowy tendrils immediately erupt from the ground with a roar, twisting around the advancing soldiers. The soldiers cry out in terror and confusion, wondering what is happening as their bodies are bound. From the ridge, Claudia asks Gerald if he can locate the enemy camp, and he confirms his kin have already found it. The Duke then raises his sword, ordering his own cheering soldiers to take the subdued enemies captive, while he and Claudia proceed to the enemy base. Inside the enemy camp, a commander sweats and grits his teeth in panic. A soldier stammers that their forces were all ensnared at the same time by some strange power, while another bursts in shouting that the army was wiped out before even breaching the lines. The commander is horrified, wondering how he can explain this loss to Prince Carlos, who had personally entrusted him with the battle. Just then, Claudia's voice tells him he doesn't need to worry about that. Claudia, Gerald, and the Duke burst into the tent. The enemy soldiers are shocked, asking who they are. Claudia calls out to Gerald, and his shadows instantly fly out, binding the commander and his guards. The bound guards groan on the floor, as Gerald informs the commander that struggling is futile and his movement is completely sealed. The Duke steps forward, pointing his sword at the defeated commander, and asks him to accompany them back to their camp. Outside, Claudia and Gerald look over the crowd of subdued soldiers, and Claudia asks if it's finally over. Gerald confirms that it is and asks if she is injured. Claudia, assuring him she is all right, thinks to herself that things ended much more neatly than she had expected. She then notices a group of frightened civilians huddled nearby, including an older man who asks who they are. Gerald explains that they appear to be villagers from Latia's border settlements who were caught in the conflict. Claudia's expression hardens as she thinks about how Guardia could harm innocent people out of petty jealousy. She steps toward them and, with a kind expression, asks if it would be all right for her to lend them a hand. The villagers, some of whom are wounded, just look up at her in stunned silence. Claudia begins to help, asking one person if they are okay. As she walks away, the villagers watch her. One man comments that everything he knew about Duke Letzia's daughter came from rumors. He'd heard that being blessed by the Dark Spirit King made her a rotten and ruthless girl, a sentiment another villager shares, noting that the Duke never talks about her. But now, watching her, one of them remarks that she just seems like an ordinary, kind girl. As Claudia walks, a small boy with a scratch on his face calls out, "Big sis." She turns, and the boy smiles, asking if she fought in the big battle too. Claudia's expression softens, and she closes her eyes, replying that all she did was immobilize the enemy, and that it was the soldiers who did the real fighting. She looks at the small, injured child and is struck by a wave of guilt. She knows she told herself she went to war to end the conflict without casualties, but she also knows it was a selfish attempt to avoid her bad end. She realizes that even though there were no fatalities, people still got hurt, and she feels like her charitable act was just to satisfy her own ego. Just then, the little boy beams at her, saying that it was thanks to her they were saved. He holds out a small, simple flower, offering it to her as thanks. Claudia is moved to tears as she accepts the flower. A beautiful, genuine smile spreads across her face as she thanks him, thinking that perhaps it really wasn't wrong for her to help after all. Nearby, two Latia soldiers watch, their hearts pounding as they blush. One stammers that she smiled, while the other mumbles that he wants to marry her, only to be told she's way out of his league. The first soldier just thinks that her smile is simply unfair. When Claudia returns home, stepping out of her carriage, she is immediately greeted by her friends. Emily, Prince Levi, Liam, Elodie, and Grayson are all there waiting for her. Emily runs forward, welcoming her home and crashing into her with a tearful hug. Emily cries that she was incredibly worried. Claudia, overwhelmed and blushing, closes her eyes and agrees, thinking she is also glad that Emily is safe. Prince Levi then steps forward and bows deeply, apologizing on behalf of the entire country for putting her in harm's way. He then looks up, adding that he is truly glad she is home safe. Claudia thanks him for his kind words. She reflects on the battle, admitting to herself that she was afraid, but she is glad she survived and got through it. More than that, however, she smiles, feeling truly glad that she was able to protect everyone. Amelia is seen stomping her feet in anger, furious that Claudia has returned safely from the battle. Amelia shouts, wondering what is going on and how this is possible, as she insists that Claudia was supposed to die on the battlefield. As she pants in rage, Grayson grabs her arm and asks her how she can be so sure about that. He pulls her close, reminding her that Claudia is protected by the Dark Spirit King and it's hard to believe she would die so easily. Amelia looks away, explaining that she knows all this because she has memories from a previous life, and this world is actually from a novel she read before. Amelia then recalls the original plot of that novel. In that story she, Amelia, was the well-liked heroine and saintess, celebrated as the kingdom's savior. Claudia, however, was the despicable villainess who was hated by everyone. In the end, the novel's Claudia was used as a political pawn, married off to the kingdom of Guardia, and ultimately died on the battlefield. Amelia grits her teeth, thinking that somehow, not only did this world's Claudia return safely, but she is now being praised as a war hero. She shoves Grayson away, convinced that something is definitely wrong. Grayson gently tells her that it's not too late to correct the plot's course. He explains that soon, the royal palace will host a banquet to celebrate the victory over Guardia. He points out that all of the country's most important nobles will be gathered there, and this is the perfect opportunity. All Emilia needs to do, he says, is tell everyone there how despicable Claudia's true nature is. He assures her that once they hear the truth, their eyes will be opened. Emilia is thrilled by this, grabbing Grayson and agreeing that it's a great idea. Grayson smiles, certain it will end favorably, as Emilia now has a dark, determined look, thinking, "Just you wait, Claudia." A few days later, Claudia arrives at the victory banquet, wearing a beautiful gown and accompanied by Liam. As they walk through the hall, the other guests stare and whisper. One man comments that it's his first time seeing the one protected by the Dark Spirit King, calling her a mysterious girl. A woman remarks on her exotic appearance, while another man wonders aloud if such a beautiful girl truly has the power to cause Armageddon. Claudia sighs, feeling that she sticks out like a sore thumb. She reflects that as she is not a knight or a high-ranking official, she normally wouldn't be allowed to attend a military banquet. However, she was specially invited because of her contribution to the victory. She had tried to reject the invitation, but she remembered Grayson's advice that it would be a good chance to deepen her relationships with the knights she supported. So, she is here, feeling very uncomfortable under everyone's gaze. Suddenly, Liam steps in front of her, smiling warmly and calling her name. He asks if she is nervous. Claudia is surprised, and just then, Elodie also appears, smiling and telling Claudia not to worry because she and Prince Levi are both there for her. As Claudia sees Prince Levi, she blushes unexpectedly. Her heart pounds and she wonders why it just skipped a beat. Liam notices her expression and asks what's wrong, but Claudia quickly stammers that it's nothing. At that moment, Grayson walks up, greeting Claudia and Liam. He tells Claudia that the soldiers she helped are all here and are waiting to thank her. As they begin to walk, a loud voice shouts for everyone to stop and not be deceived. It is Emilia, who points directly at Claudia. She yells that Claudia has the protection of the Dark Spirit King, who will destroy the kingdom. She accuses Claudia of ruthlessly cutting down the enemy soldiers just like the last black magician and warns the crowd that Claudia will one day turn on them. Claudia is shocked by the outburst, but one of the soldiers she saved, the one with the band-aid, steps forward and shouts that she never killed anyone. He explains that Claudia only restrained the enemy's movements so the soldiers could overcome them more easily. Emilia screams that it's the same thing and that it makes Claudia an accomplice to murder, insisting she will destroy the kingdom. As Claudia looks worried, Liam squeezes her hand reassuringly and tells her it's okay, letting her know she has nothing to worry about. Claudia nods, comforted. The soldier then continues, saying his friend was killed in the previous war with Guardia. He states that he is proud to call his friend a hero, because he took up his sword to protect the people he loved. He then turns to Emilia and asks if she is calling his dead friend a murderer. Emilia is shocked, stammering that this has nothing to do with it. The soldier presses on, asking if she has any idea how many people died fighting in this current battle. He answers his own question, 0. He declares that, up until now, a war has never been waged without resulting in unnecessary casualties, and this time it was completely owing to Lady Letzia's efforts. Emilia is left stunned. She loses her composure, screaming about how they are making her out to be the bad guy. She insists that she is the heroine who will become the saintess, and that Claudia is the one who should be the villainess. Prince Levi steps forward, telling her that's enough. He reminds her that the saintess is a symbol of hope and healing, whose duty is to pray for the people. Levi coldly addresses her as Lady Logan, asking if she really thinks she can fulfill that duty when all she seems to do is talk nonsense. Emilia protests that of course she can. Levi tells her that this is real life, not a novel or a play, and that there are no heroes or villains here. Emilia screams that she understands that, but she knows how the story is supposed to play out. She yells that she is the heroine and begins reciting the original plot. Claudia was exiled for bullying her, became Guardia's pawn, and tried to destroy Latiia. She then looks at the soldiers who defended Claudia, demanding to know why they are taking Claudia's side when they were all supposed to be enamored with her. As Claudia watches this meltdown, she thinks that Emilia can see that things are different from the novel, but her heart just can't accept it. A voice booms. The king declares that he cannot forgive her contempt for Claudia, nor can he forgive her attempt to humiliate the soldiers who fought bravely for the kingdom. He sentences her to prison, telling her she will have plenty of time to calm down there. Emilia just smirks in disbelief. Suddenly she snaps, screaming for them to quit joking and that she's had enough. She shouts the name, Grace. Claudia is instantly alarmed, wondering if Amelia plans to summon the Light Spirit King right here. Gerald, at her side, notes that the Light Spirit King is troublesome. Amelia throws her hands out, commanding Grace to come forth and do away with all of them immediately, the Light Spirit King, confirming Grace's identity. Amelia is seen shouting, commanding her spirit, Grace, to come forth and immediately get rid of everyone in the room. Claudia and Liam watch with concerned expressions, Liam's eyes wide with worry. To Amelia's complete disbelief, the beautiful, blonde spirit, Grace, appears adorned with roses and calmly says, "No." Amelia is left stunned, her face frozen in confusion. Amelia's confusion quickly turns to rage as she screams at Grace, demanding to know why she won't listen and telling her to stop screwing around. Grace looks down with a sad, gentle expression, explaining that it's true Amelia's soul was beautiful when she was young. A flashback shows a younger, plainer-looking Amelia as Grace continues, saying that one day, that beautiful soul turned ugly. Grace explains that she waited patiently, hoping Amelia would recognize the error of her ways and repent, but now, Grace has had enough. Standing tall, she informs Amelia that she is not a tool for her disposal and adds with a scoff that no one would listen to someone like her anyway. As this unfolds, Claudia and Gerald observe the scene. Claudia, looking worried, wonders what's going on, while Gerald notes that it seems the Light Spirit King does not intend to cause them any harm. Amelia, however, begins to break down, gritting her teeth and thinking that this is all Claudia's fault. She points an accusing finger at a shocked Claudia, yelling that she was just jealous of the heroine and decided to poison everyone's minds against her. Amelia decides that if that's the case, she will just have to wake everyone up herself. In a shocking move, Amelia suddenly lunges and grabs a sword from a nearby guard sheath. As another guard shouts for her to be captured, Amelia rushes directly toward Claudia with the drawn blade. Liam shouts Claudia's name in warning, but before Amelia can reach her, Gerald appears. He grabs the blade of the sword with his bare hand, the steel cracking under his grip, and coldly tells Amelia to drop it. Amelia is now terrified, screaming for help and identifying Gerald as the Dark Spirit King. She claims he is just like the destructive figure from the emergence myth and accuses Claudia of controlling him in a plot to destroy the country. Gerald, looking down on her, simply calls her a fool. He tells her to quit spouting nonsense, placing his hand over her mouth to silence her muffled protests. He states firmly that unlike Amelia, Claudia would never use him as a tool to spread hatred. This, he reveals, is the very reason he chose Claudia in the first place. He adds that if Claudia were the kind of person Amelia accuses her of being, the entire country would have been burned to ashes long ago. As the king and the court look on, Gerald continues his defense of Claudia, stating that given how poorly she has been treated by everyone, a lesser person would have retaliated long ago. He then turns his cold, smiling gaze back to Amelia, grabbing her chin and warning her to never show her face in front of Claudia again. Defeated, Amelia slumps to the ground. The king orders the guards to take her away. Liam immediately turns to Claudia, asking if she is all right, and she confirms that she is. Claudia watches Amelia go, thinking that perhaps Amelia also just wished for happiness, but will never find it by looking down on others. With the commotion over, Grace turns to Claudia and apologizes for the ruckus Amelia caused. She formally introduces herself as Grace, the Light Spirit King, and says she is pleased to meet her. A slightly overwhelmed Claudia just says, okay, prompting Gerald to mutter that Grace is as hopeless a flirt as ever. Grace explains that since the girl she was protecting caused so much trouble, she wants to offer an apology in the form of a gift. A bright light glows from her hand as she gives Claudia her blessing, happily announcing that Claudia can now use healing magic. Claudia is baffled, asking, "Magic?" and staring at her own hands. Gerald explains that while it's rare, spirit kings can bless humans with a portion of their divine power. He notes that because Claudia already has his power, the new mix of divine energies has caused her appearance to change a bit. Grace confirms that Claudia should now be able to use light magic. At this, Gerald immediately becomes possessive, pulling Claudia into a hug and telling Grace that he is still the one who cherishes Claudia the most, blessing or not. Grace just calls him overprotective, while Claudia, caught in the embrace, stammers out a thank you. Grace gives a cheerful, "See you," and disappears. Claudia is left wondering if this bizarre event, so unlike anything in the novel, means she has finally managed to avoid her bad end. A few weeks later, Claudia is summoned by her parents. She enters a room to find both her father, the Duke, and her mother sitting together on a sofa. Her father tells her to have a seat and presents her with a stack of letters, explaining that numerous invitations to tea parties have arrived for her. Claudia is surprised, noting that her mother somehow still has friends despite being shut away in the mansion. When Claudia asks if she is expected to attend, her father confirms it, stating that as a noble lady, she must build connections. He also mentions that they have received a flood of applications for the position of her exclusive maid, as it's unheard of for a lady to be without one. Her mother then speaks, saying she feels she must speak frankly about the past. She confesses that for a long time, she was afraid of Claudia, but things have changed, and she now realizes Claudia is a kind and brave person. She admits her heart was hardened against her daughter and says that, though it may be too late, she wishes to be by Claudia's side. Claudia's expression fills with pain. She thinks to herself that it's too little too late. She says that just because she received the Light Spirit King's blessing, everyone's attitude, including her parents, suddenly changed. Her mother looks pained and insists that's not the only reason, reminding Claudia of when she saved Sylphonce from falling. Claudia replies flatly that they didn't believe her back then. Her mother can only apologize, and Claudia quietly asks, why? As her parents sit in distressed silence, Claudia's inner turmoil boils over. She thinks, why are these people acting like they are victims? She wonders why, if their past treatment can be so easily erased, she is still in so much pain. She suddenly stands and turns her back on them, shouting that the past cannot be changed. As her father calls her name, she runs from the room, yelling that all this new friendliness feels like malice and that she won't let them just pretend what they did to her never happened. As she flees, she thinks about her core beliefs, that she is the Villainess, protected by the Dark Spirit King, and that it couldn't be helped that she was shunned and unloved. Tears stream down her face as she sobs, thinking that she has always lived believing she was destined to be alone, and now, that deeply held belief is falling apart.